There's a lot of speculation in regards to the future of the Smash series. After all, this is called Smash Ultimate, the perfect culmination of all the games with everyone here. What could possibly top something like this? Well, a lot in my opinion, but we'll get into that later. A big question I hear get asked more often than I would have thought is the idea of whether or not we're even gonna get another Smash game. Personally, I feel like it's pretty obvious that we're gonna get something eventually, right? There's no way Nintendo's gonna let something as big as Smash just stop happening. But there's still a lot of questions in regards to what the future could look like. And now, 2.5 years after the DLC ended, and over 5 years since the game initially came out, and I think I'm finally in a position to where I can start speculating about this topic without seeming like I'm jumping the gun too much. Not that I want Sakurai to work himself to death like he seems inclined to do. Now we kinda already know that a new Nintendo console is coming. We can't be sure exactly when or in exactly what form, but the Switch came out almost 7 years ago now, which is about the max lifespan of any type of console. So something a bit new and fresh is definitely on the docket. So we have a few possible things here. For one, Smash could pull a Mario Kart 8 and just put a Smash Ultimate Deluxe on the Switch's successor, which would come with all the DLC and potentially even minor tweaks. Now, whether or not this would be considered a new Smash game is up to debate. I guess it ultimately depends on just how much they change or add to it, if at all. But given how Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has basically doubled its core size and added so many new characters, a Smash Ultimate Deluxe is not only possible on its own, but it's also possible to have extra DLC eventually, which is basically a new game. Though it might be hard to compare the two games when Smash Ultimate has so many IPs to juggle. Like, adding new content isn't as simple as just making it. I don't really know much about copyright or how the process of getting permission to use characters works, but I imagine there would have to be a lot of effort to get them to reuse all of these characters and songs for what would technically be a different game. Maybe there's legal jargon around that, but I don't really know. So, a Smash Ultimate Deluxe for a new console, eventually. That's one option for the future, and something like this would probably just take a few years. There's rumors that the new console thing is happening this year. Honestly, I could see it even being released next year with focus on marketing this year, or maybe even later, I don't really know. Like, honestly, these rumors are kinda hard to believe, but it just makes sense for things to start happening soon. While this path for Smash is a pretty safe play, there's still other options. For one, what about instead of wholly new games, they just remake an old one? Probably either Smash 64 or Melee. I think either of these would be the biggest contenders for some sort of HD remaster. I'm not really wondering whether or not everyone would want that. I know some of the hardcore fans would probably like these games a little bit less if they got more polished, and thus honestly lost a lot of their interesting techniques that probably weren't intentional. But for a casual, it's a really tempting idea. For this route, not only would it be easier to get permission to use all the characters since third parties weren't introduced until Brawl, but there's just less stuff overall compared to the bigger is always better mindset that games have been forcing nowadays. If you're asking me for a middle ground between things that I want and things that I expect, this is probably pretty close to it. Of course, the YouTuber in me would want a bunch of huge, new, amazing content as soon as possible, but something like this would still be really cool, and technically they could do that while also working on a new game anyways, so I like it. Anyways, outside of all those options, there's the usual route. The brand spanking new Smash game. Once again, we split off into two paths about how this game could be approached. On the one hand, you have a game that's, as we kind of expect as a consumer, bigger than Smash Ultimate. I mean, it's not like we were gonna get a sequel that was smaller, those aren't allowed. So in this game, whether or not we keep Everyone Is Here is kind of a coin toss, and I do doubt that absolutely everyone would be added, including DLC. But you could probably just expect way more characters total anyways. You know, probably more thorough use of Echo Fighters and potentially more first-party characters, and whatever single-player gimmick they can think of that's probably not as interesting as it could be. Would this have its own story mode a la Subspace Emissary? I don't know, and I really doubt it, but if they really want to top Smash Ultimate without having to get like a roster of 100 characters, it's possible. Then there's the other route. They still have a lot of characters, but they cut out a lot of the roster, and this time focus on polish. I'm thinking more like a roster size of Brawl, maybe pre-DLC Smash 4, around there. And in this one, you revamped characters to be more modern, making Link have more Tears of the Kingdom stuff, Mario having more, honestly, anything in general, Ganondorf being better. Basically, just getting rid of the DLC, or maybe keeping them and just not changing those, and then turning the veteran fighters also into DLC. if you kinda get what I mean. Because in current Smash, there seems to be a fear of making characters drastically or even semi-different between the games, which has led to a lot of old editions being left extremely outdated, especially when compared to their DLC counterparts. So a smaller game with focus of it being a revamp of the series. This could be similar to the Melee remake idea, but this would probably be even more unique and have even more focus on single player aspects, at least I'd hope. So those are the routes that I think Smash's future could realistically go down. The remake-esque options probably won't take more than a few years if they started not too long ago, so they'd be in line with new console stuff. In the more original stuff, that's where it's kinda hard to guess timelines. The last interview I've read of Sakurai talking about his position for a new Smash game was somewhere in 2023, where he retracts his statement about him retiring and says that a new game is possible. But that certainly doesn't make me think it's in development right now, just that it's a possibility, and that he would be willing to work on it. Even though he should probably be retiring, but I guess that's not for me to decide. Just to give you an idea, Sakurai has gone on record to say that it just took them 2.5 years to develop Smash Ultimate, a cycle that started soon after Smash 4's DLC ended. Now, my opinion is that there's a lot of cut corners in pre-DLC Smash Ultimate, especially on the single player side, but regardless, that's not the biggest amount of time for development. So if starting right now they really wanted to begin a new Smash game, and they don't try to make it an open world super complex 5 times the size of China game, then it's possible we'd get it around 2027 or so. I'm not gonna say 2026, since it feels like either approach they go for a new game would probably take more time than Ultimate did, and there's no reason for us to think they've started development anytime recently. But again, this whole section is just loose speculation. If you look at the timeline of Smash games, it's pretty inconsistent, with just a few years between Smash 64 and Melee, but then 7 years between Melee and Brawl. And not to mention that DLC just wasn't really a thing back then anyway, so it's hard to think about how that factors in. Like back then, when a game was released, it was done, but like, is Smash Ultimate done when it released, or when the last DLC released? But okay, really, for just a new game, 2027 is the earliest that I can imagine it personally, but who knows? It's just kind of fun to talk about, you know? But what's more interesting than speculation for me is just talking about what I'd like to see in whatever game thing happens. I'm not talking about new characters, but just slight elements polished. Things that could technically happen in any of the planning options we went over before. Now, number one thing I'd want from any new Smash game is good online. Please. I'd like to be able to play the game online without a year of input delay. At this rate, my Oracle is starting to get better at the game than me. It's kind of a similar case to the bots in TF2. Like, no matter what new stuff you add to the game, if I can't really play it online, then what good is that new stuff? Obviously, it's not the exact same, but the idea that playability is more important than raw content for me is what I'm trying to get across. Well, that's half a lie actually, because let's be honest, again, I'm a YouTuber. And for the purposes of my types of trivia-based content, I don't really need good online connection. But for just actually playing the game, I really do think a huge reason why I stopped playing Smash Ultimate on my free time is just because I was never able to enjoy playing online with my friends, or strangers, or anyone. But I'm not exactly blowing any minds with that desire now, am I? Oh, here's something I'd like back. Custom moves. This would be pretty difficult if they kept the game's rosters massive, especially with our current roster. Like, how would custom specials work on characters like Min Min, or with like Hero's Menu? But man, I just really liked the custom moves from Smash 4. They were goofy, diverse, completely unbalanced, but it still offered a really fun way to spice up casual play. They could change how they approach it, maybe only have one extra move per character, or maybe not every character gets one, I don't know, but I would still love to see these back. Another thing I would like to see return are trophies, but that's another pretty basic thing to want, and I've kind of cried about that a lot on this channel already. Though sometimes basic is good, like all the basic elements of replays that aren't in Smash right now. For one, the 30-second shadow play record thing that's built into the console. Why doesn't that work for Smash? Do you know how easy it would be to save clips from a match if I could just do that? How many people could share their trivia with me if they didn't have to buy a capture card to record footage from training mode? It's a really simple feature that I've grown to really appreciate in the games that have it, and therefore lament the fact that it's not in Smash Ultimate for no good reason. And speaking of clips, the clip viewer in the game is just so sad. Why can't I fast forward or rewind? Like, I know the answer, they're playing the match out in real time rather than showing a recording, but even the demos in TF2, which I think work in a similar way at least, let you fast forward. Making it more accessible to view and like get to certain parts of your replays would just be really, really nice. I mean, like, if you have the 30-second shadowplay record thing, then it might not be as important, but I still think people would appreciate a more accessible replay feature. So yeah, fix either or preferably both of these options, and getting footage and sharing content will instantly become so much more streamlined. I can't think of all the time something weird happened while I wasn't recording, but uh-oh, I'm not in an official match, so I guess it's just lost forever. Oh, also, with the in-game camera, can you just get rid of this axis thing? Like, sure, it could be a toggle option too, but like, honestly, who's really using this? At the very least, it should be off by default. It goes away when you take pictures, but sometimes I just want a little panning shot or something fun like that. Also, I don't really know the viability for this, but being able to access the camera in training mode too would be really cool. It saved me from having to go into a normal match to see something at a different angle. Okay, you can kind of tell where I'm coming from as a content creator with these desires, but man, these minor annoyances really do add up. And I feel like any game should strive to make sharing content more accessible, because sharing content is what spreads the game, you know? It's just free advertisement. Okay, but for things more general, I've said this more than enough times now, but man, I'd love it if Pokemon could just have alts of their shiny forms. Apparently the Pokemon company is really stingy about how Pokemon appear outside of the games, but like, if Pokemon can be shiny in the games, then I don't see the harm of letting them be shiny outside. Especially when Pokemon do have alternate costumes in these games, which makes them look different, so if they're allowed to look different, then why not just make them shiny? But whatever, I didn't actually research any of that, just give me the shinies, please. Oh, and also let the Pokeball Pokemon be shiny as well. Can you imagine how awesome it'd be if like each Pokemon had a 1 in 1028 or whatever chance to spawn as a shiny? Or maybe even lower odds? Rather than having Mew, who's literally worthless, under the guise of being lucky. This would be like really cool. Oh yeah, also make Mew not worthless anymore, please. Bringing back CDs would be super cool. I feel like most people who played the older games have memories of scrambling fervently around the battlefield trying to reach one of them as rabid CPUs attacked you at every chance they could get. It was a very fun system and a much more interesting way to collect these things. You know what was also fun? Smash Run. I even talked about it in one of my more recent videos, and that really reminded me just how much of a shame it is that it's stuck on the 3DS version of Smash 4. I didn't use that version very much, but man, Smash Run was always so much fun. Kirby Air Ride City Trial, but for Smash, it's just a brilliant idea, and I think it belongs perfectly in Smash as a good use of the gameplay and style from Subspace Emissary without having to create a whole entire single-player story campaign. While I'm still indulging myself, there's some gameplay stuff that I really liked from Smash 4 that I miss. Things that really shouldn't have an effect on other people, but it did for me. For one, being able to tech footstools and thus making them a not true addition to any combo was a bit unfortunate. This paired with jab locks not forcing a neutral getup, and a lot of really cool combo chains became either non-existent or just not true and thus less interesting. For me personally, of course, and that's not to say that there aren't interesting combos in this game, or that it's only those two changes that could affect how combos work. Obviously that's not true. Just that I sort of miss how much more potential there was in Smash 4. Though maybe that's my Lucas brain talking. Yes, we're talking about combos. Remember how I used to do item combos? Remember those days? Well, if a new game came out and it spiced up its mechanics, characters, stages, etc. enough, I'd probably make some combos again, depending on how good everything was. Even if I didn't, that type of mindset was just how I used to play the game with my friends. We'd go with goofy characters on dumb stages with items on and fish for cool interactions, combos, clips, all that. In my opinion, Smash Ultimate kinda got rid of a lot of those goofy interactions, and is another big reason why I stopped playing the game on my own time. So yeah, combo stuff I think would be cool, and people seem to like my combos, so I think they would in turn also like it. Oh, also keep Stage Builder exactly how you have it, it's so cool, but just let it have a pseudo training mode element to it. That is, let me spawn items in Stage Builder. Can you imagine that? Not only would it be so good for just general trivia testing, being able to create your own precise layout for item tests alongside a functional in-game camera, but like item combos and Stage Builder combos combined? That would be so insane. Like at the moment, sure, you can use items in Stage Builder combos, but let's be realistic here. You not only need to wait for those items to spawn, but you need to go pick them up wherever they are. And if you're using multiple items at different timings, you gotta hope that all those RNG elements fall in place together perfectly. Not to mention you have to do this all in a real match, meaning resetting the combo is extremely tedious, and yeah, it's just not feasible. And it limits how diverse and crazy the use of items can get. That's another reason why I think having better replay recording features would be nice, since more people could share these goofy moments or crazy combos without having to invest in a whole entire capture card. But I won't retread old grounds again. And I also won't be going forward. I'm gonna stand right here and just end the video. Yeah, as you can tell, this is more of a casual upload than I normally do, more commentary than video essay. Actually, I don't know if that's considered different from my usual stuff or not, but it certainly felt easier to write and edit, and that's because I've been very busy and tired this month. I wasn't lying in that sponsor segment when I said that this month sucks for me, because it does. I hate January. So, I just wanted to get something a little fun written out. I've had the idea to talk about Smash Future stuff for a while, ever since, like, Sora was revealed, but I felt like talking about it at that timing would have been too soon, I think? But nowadays, people are always asking me how I make content for a dead game, so I guess that means now's the perfect time, right? Realistically, I've sort of convinced myself, or perhaps forced myself, to believe that we're not getting any new Smash stuff in a very long time. Especially when regarding my YouTube channel, like, I'm not really gonna be in a position to just wait for new Smash stuff to cover. Like, if I could expect a new game within 2 years, maybe more closer to like 1 year, then sure, maybe. But I don't expect that. And let me tell you, a lot changes in a few years. I'm probably gonna have a new career by that time, who knows? Not that the channel's gonna explode or anything. If any new Smash thing really catches my attention, I very well could make uploads regardless of what my life looks like. Unless I'm dead. But those types of thoughts are just too far into the future for me to really worry about. A new game will happen eventually, but it's just not soon enough for it to be in the forefront of my life planning. But that doesn't mean speculation and discussion can't be fun. I kept it pretty surface level for this video, but man, if I wrote down every single tiny little nitpick that I wish just wasn't there as I was going through the process of getting footage for my videos or just playing the game, this video would probably be way longer and way more petty too. So, just leave your comments below what you think the future of Smash looks like. And please don't consult your tarot cards, because that is cheating. And also tell me what you'd want from a new game, whatever that may be. Oh, yeah, right. Another thing I want from the next game is for them to keep Hero. I really don't know what I'd do without my top deck gamble strat anymore. Alright, with that, I'd like to give another thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's laid-back video. Again, click the link in the description for 10% off your first month. And I'd also like to thank my patrons Raighne, Soul700, Burbo, SpiderJew, and everyone else for the support. Stay casual, and I'll see y'all later.